You just saw me use a 15,000 ruble gun I had on my scav to collect 1,742,000 rubles worth of loot from this player. Now I'm going to show you how you can use your beginner loot to become a Russian millionaire in Escape from Tarkov. Our first tip is to do your scav runs on reserve. Reserve is decent ground loot that can make you at least 100,000 rubles per raid, but the real benefit of this map is raiders, which spawn in when the train arrives and when you pull this lever located in this shack near the top of the map. Your scav is an opportunity not only to get free loot, but also a way to learn new tactics when facing enemies without the pressure of losing gear. That's why raiders can be the perfect challenge with a huge payoff for newer players in both combat experience and high-end loot. They aren't easy to fight though and will require a lot of quick thinking to beat all of them. Sometimes you will only have to fight around 3, but occasionally you can be fighting up to 8. The trick to fighting raiders in close range is constant movement. Re-peeking the same angles or waiting in one place leads to a quick one shot in the head. Move, take one clean shot, and move again. Keep doing this until all the raiders that spawn in are dead, and then you can thoroughly loot them. I also recommend that you try to quickly pick up one of their guns and rigs. From this you can get grenades, better healing, better ammo, and of course a gun that likely has lower recoil and is better suited for taking out enemies of their kind. So if this is such a challenge, why would I recommend this to a new player? Throwing yourself into difficult situations in Tarkov can help you learn the mechanics and the game a lot faster. The payoff can be much larger too. Sometimes you can even get lucky and discover the remains of several raiders that were left unlooted. Before we move on, this map also has the best scav boss that travels with 6 guards who share a lot in common with raiders. Using the same tactics you use on raiders, you can easily dispatch Glukar and his guards to get so much loot you won't be able to collect it all in one raid. If you take a look here, I walked into this building to find the remains of several followers and Glukar, which ended up making me around 1 million rubles for no work at all. The second tip is only go to woods for missions as a beginner. Woods can be perfect for PMC loot once you have the tools needed to fight high-level players with good armor and guns. But while you are just starting out in the game, it can be a huge map you get lost on, only to either step on a landmine or get shot in the head from somewhere amongst the trees. While you are starting, a few missions will take you here. With luck, you can get these done and extract reasonably quickly. But the point is, you shouldn't try to run raids for loot on woods until you have already found plenty of success on other maps and you are showing up for PvPing in a night raid. The third tip is, if you are running low on guns, do a scav run. When you are just beginning Tarkov, you will most likely end up losing most, if not all, of your beginner loot before you get the hang of the game. Fortunately, if you find yourself in a bind like this, you can do a scav run on any map and quickly extract with whatever gear your scav has on them. In this example here, I did make a couple stops. Some maps are going to be better than others for this type of escape. I've experienced the least amount of exit campers on reserve, but interchange can also be profitable. Factory may sound like the perfect map for this at first, but as you can see here, you run the much higher risk of spawning in as a scav in a bad situation. The fourth tip is, for quick XP, do factory runs. If you need quick XP for flea market fast tracking or getting you the little more XP you need to get to the next level, a short factory run is perfect. Load into a raid, find one scav or PMC well on the way to your choosing, one tap them, or 2 or 3, and extract. Just by killing one scav or PMC, you can get 1000 XP every time, and counting queuing time, it'll only take you around 5 to 15 minutes per raid. The fifth tip is to take your time. Coming from games like Call of Duty or Rainbow Six Siege, where the meta is sprinting, jumping, and spamming quick movements, it's highly tempting to bring that to Tarkov. But haste is a quick way to lose all your loot in Tarkov, making a slower, more methodical approach to moving the meta. The sprint to fire time in Tarkov can be very long depending on the gun. It takes several seconds to recover from a sprint and get your gun up, plus any extra ADS time. Unless your opponent isn't great at aiming, your raid will likely be over by the time you can get your gun up. The sixth tip is for quickly leveling vendors. This tip will help you reach a vendor's money spent requirement to level them to the next tier. Simply buy their items and sell them back to them on repeat until you reach the required amount. Both buying and selling contribute to this number. Although you may be losing money, it is a much faster way to reach this requirement. One last tip on this is that if you are doing this for a vendor that sells currency like Peacekeeper, you can buy a bunch of their cash and that will also count towards the money spent. In order to upgrade to the next tier, you will still need to have the level requirement and also the reputation requirement, But if you are being held up by the money requirement alone, this can be a very easy way to fast track that. The 7th tip is to save valuable keys, components, and parts for flea market. Vendors may occasionally give you the best price for an item, but most of the time they can be cheating you out of a much higher payday. To show you a few examples of this, we have graphics cards, PSUs, an M-Lock angled grip, and Labs keycards. For all of these, you can get significantly more if you were to sell them to the flea market. To sell on the flea market, you will need to have the flea market, which requires level 10, and you will also need the items to be marked as found in raid. Later on in this video, we will explain how you can get items to be marked as found in raid so you can sell them on the flea market. The 8th tip is to always wear a helmet or some kind of body armor. I'll be honest with you, helmets aren't that good, but you do need them to save your life against scavs and weak PMCs with cheap ammo and cheap guns. As you can see in this clip, I got shot in the head twice at close range with the shotgun and survived the blast only with a crippling headache. The last thing you want to be is carting out good loot or have your favorite gun on you only to lose to someone using a cheap gun with cheap rounds. The same goes for body armor. It's good to be wearing body armor because it ensures people with cheap rounds or scavs with shotguns can't insta-kill you to the thorax. We both ended up spraying a mag into each other, and in the end I won. We both had body armor on, but I had the slightly better rounds. The 9th tip is to always insure. Insurance is one of the best investments you can make in Tarkov. Do this every raid and you will have heaps of loot coming back to you all the time. You'd be surprised at how often people try to take your gear but never make it to the extract. With all the geared players and lucky scavs out, there's a pretty high chance whatever you bring will come right back to you. Plus it's a lot cheaper than buying all the gear again and again. The 10th tip is, for the best tech loot, go to Interchange. This map can make you millions of rubles per raid. Almost every time I go to Interchange, I find a Tetris which goes for between 480 and 560,000 when converted to a Bitcoin and sold to Therapist. And if I don't find a Tetris, I'll find a graphics card which could be sold for around 260 to 650,000 rubles on the flea market, depending on where the market's at. Getting valuable loot happens so often because there are 3 tech stores right next to each other in Interchange. Tech Light is the riskiest one to go to since there's usually a person waiting at the top of the escalator to kill you, but you can smoothly go to the other 2 named Texo and Rasmussen. I will also mention that on the other side of Interchange, there is another spawn for Tetrises and another tech store. So it's worth checking this out if you're on that side of the map, but if you have already looted the other 2 tech stores or 3 tech stores, I recommend that you don't do it because crossing the middle of Interchange is probably the riskiest thing you can do. The 11th tip is to keep repositioning during combat. When you are in a fight, you should try to keep moving around so the enemy never knows where they should be aiming. The less predictable you are, the more caught up they get with predicting where you'll be next, and you can drop them. The constant movement ensures you can't get pinched or flanked, and it typically gives you the first shot advantage when your enemy tries to pursue you. In this example here, it took me 2 shots to down the enemy, however moving put the enemy in an uncomfortable position that let me get the easy kill. The 12th tip is to use bullet piercing or quality rounds. Good rounds is the next best investment you can make in Tarkov. High penetration bullets are going to make fighting the beefiest of enemies much more manageable. High BP rounds can penetrate helmets and armor of higher classes, leading to fights that take much shorter and fewer rounds to eliminate the enemy. For people that don't quite have the flea market just yet, look up the rounds available for the gun you are using from the vendors on the wiki. The Tarkov wiki can tell you what the penetration and HP damage is, so you know what you should be targeting with your gun. Some people like to target limbs with high HP damage rounds as there is no armor on legs, and the damage done to a blacked out limb will spread to the rest of the body. For beginners, I recommend using a high penetration round and aiming for the head as it is a one shot. As soon as you get the flea market at level 10, invest in high quality BP rounds and you won't regret it. You don't have to buy the best BP rounds either. For example, with the AK you can get a regular BP round instead of 7N. 7N may have the better stats, but the money lost won't be as bad per raid for a person just starting. The 13th tip is, when getting shot, spring for visual disrupting cover or hard cover. Don't try to stand still or randomly shoot in the direction of the enemy if you know you're getting shot at. Going prone or crouching are also 2 very bad options in this situation. Your best chance of survival in an ambush by a ranged attacker in Tarkov is to sprint to the nearest tree or rock and take cover behind it. Even large bushes can be useful to disrupt their line of sight. Even if it doesn't block bullets, it gives you more time to move further away from where the scuffle began without the enemy being able to track you nearly as easy. Eventually, the camper that was shooting at you will either get interested in someone else or move on to the rest of the raid. The 14th tip is all about the rules of found in raid. You cannot sell items on the flea market if they aren't marked as found in raid. Although found in raid sounds pretty self-explanatory, it isn't. You cannot sell items on the flea market if they aren't marked as found in raid. Although found in raid sounds pretty self-explanatory, it isn't. If you do a run through, your items will not be marked as found in raid. You must stay in the raid for a certain amount of time or get a certain amount of XP for the loot to be marked as found in raid. If you put an item in your secure container and die, it will not be found as raid. If you take items off of a PMC, any equipment they brought from their stash will not be marked as found in raid. You will have to sell any of these items to a vendor like Mechanics Gear or Ragman depending on the item. Any items crafted from hideout or received from a quest will be marked as found in raid. Those are the rules of found in raid, so make sure if you are planning on escaping Tarkov to sell your items on the flea market that you get at least one scav on the way out so it isn't counted as a run through. The 15th tip is to use frag grenades. Frag grenades are a great utility in battle. Occasionally you may get a kill with them, but more often you will shift the fight and get your enemy off guard so you can quickly follow up with a volley of well-placed bullets getting you an easy kill. The noise alone is scary enough to get somebody to run. Most of the time your enemy will have no clue where the grenade is, and sometimes neither will you. Also, when fighting raiders or scavs, there will be audio cues, so by throwing a grenade at your AI enemy, you can get an idea of where they are because of the voice line they utter when the grenade falls next to them. We will be doing a part 2 to this video very soon, so if you want to see more tips like this in the future, be sure to subscribe. And if you are a beginner to Tarkov and have any questions, I encourage you to comment down below and I'll get you an answer. I hope your next raids are very profitable, and good luck out there.